it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
What's up?
What's going
Hello, everyone.
I'm like, man, that's a good long intro.
Yeah, I was dancing over here, just dancing to
I
the
mean,
music.
I was too. It's kind of like one of those ringtones. You just start vibing with it, and then it is what it is. So, welcome everybody to this week's Demystifying session. I'm Dustin Valkema. I am joined by Rodolfo Silva.
You always do that, man.
ZBrush mastermind, and we've got Kyle Johnstone in the back doing his thing. It's like we'll call him DJ Scratches. He's in the back doing his thing. Shout out to Dr. Sassy, who's going to be putting all of the timestamps together as normal. And yeah, let's get right into the housekeeping so that we can move on to the training portion, because I know you've got some stuff you got to get to, Rodolfo, after the session here. So let's switch over to my screen, if that's possible. 3, 2, 1, go. There it is.
There we go.
All right. So as always, we've got our housekeeping going on. First off, the Maxon events page is something you're going to want to check out if you enjoy these live streams and the free learning content that Maxon offers. There's a whole lot to take part in and join in with these sessions. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So maxon.net/events is where you can find all of this. Next, we have Cineversity. So there's a ton of training on Cineversity if you're not currently using it. This is something that I like to go to every now and then to deep dive into certain parts of Cinema 4D. And whether or not, you know, I'm a master trainer, like there's always more to learn. And so I get to learn from Jonas and Thanasis and Darren and all these guys that are like way beyond my freaking wavelengths in my brain. And they get quite complex and deep diving certain topics. So you'll find a lot here, as well as many of the sessions that we do for Demystifying and Ellie Wade when she's doing Redshift and various things. A lot of that will be here. So go ahead and check out Cineversity. So our free t-shirts, we have the Ask the Trainer t-shirts. Super cool. Spooky Renders is the passcode. I know that Kyle's going to leave a link down in the comments here with the password so that you can get those. All you have to do is pay for shipping. So as soon as you get in, you can put in Spooky Renders as the password to get in, and then you can pick the shirt of your choosing and pay shipping, and that is it. Lastly, we have Maxon certification. So if you want to join the what we'll call Cool Kids Club, being certified, whether it's for your industry job, maybe a bit more of a hit on your resume, and also learning or wanting to challenge yourself and see how proficient you really are, is, you know, you dive into Cinema 4D. It's a really good place to do that. So certification will take you there if you want to get into certified training and do kind of what we're doing here, along with a big part of the Maxon team. Certifications where you can do that and get your name out there in that space. So without further ado, let's get down to Rodolfo here and start diving into ZBrush.
Hey, what's up, everyone? So thank you, Dustin, by the way, for the intro, for the amazing wrestling kind of intro. I feel like a wrestler.
We are ready to rumble today. Let's get it.
I feel like I'm gonna do some tricks over here. That's what they do, right, on wrestling, right?
Something like that. Backflips, maybe.
Some backflips in ZBrush and some KOs and stuff like that. So maybe not, you know, actual literal KO. So hey, so how is everyone? I'm going to carry on what we were doing last week, skipping over like this section that we just mentioned last week, which was around the terrain, like modeling the terrain, modeling the big house using Gizmo deformers and live booleans, etc. And the fiber mesh, right? The fiber mesh workflows. So we have this, which is what we came up like last week on our demo. This is the demo, okay? Don't judge. It's just a simple pumpkin over here. So one of the things that I thought we could figure out this time was actually to go over IMM brushes, right? So to start populating the scene, like how did I come up with with this. The scale is all wrong for the other one, but whatever. So all of these models that you see right here, let me just switch the material here real quick so you guys can see a little better what's going on. So all of these models that you see over here, from the tombstones to this isn't supposed to be here. This is like a test. But the cobwebs are a whole different ballgame that I'm hoping we can get to today, depending on how long do I take to explain the rest of the workflows. But everything from the fence here to these tombstones to the cobblestone path, even this framing here, you can see it's sort of like the same models as the cobblestone. These are all IMM curve brushes, right? And for those of you who have been following my ZBrush live stream, you know that I've been in the last couple of streams, particularly going over IMM curve brushes to do a bunch of different things, because some questions just popped in on my Discord server and I just had to address them. So IMM curve brushes for everything except the tombstones, which is just regular IMMs, and I have the brushes right over here, so you guys can check it out. Like, this is basically the skull, the candle, the tombstones, anything that's going to be placed one by one. It's this brush, and this is another brush that I created, which is basically the curve brush, right? So if I just draw over here, let me just turn off polypaint and the textures real quick. Remember, like last week, we just turn off the texture for one and then go over here to apply last action to all subtools. This is under the subtool palette. Just press this, press OK, and it's gonna do the same action for everything. So a quick and easy way to apply some feature, whatever, maybe apply creasing to every single asset or dynamic subdivision instead of going over one by one. So for this little brush, you can see here, if I just draw stuff over, it's going to create a path, a trail of those models, right? Or maybe this cobblestone path. Let me just raise my draw size over here, just tap it, and you can see, well, something's gone horribly wrong with this brush, but it doesn't matter because we're going to create a new one from scratch. The fence as well, it should work. Well, it kind of works, this one. It's just a little twisty, but so basically there's a brush for the curves, because these are all settings that you can find under the brush palette. I'm just going to draw it over here, and you can find it under modifiers, and you have to turn on not the triparts, but you have to turn on the stroke and under the stroke curve mode. If you don't have curve mode, this is just going to be a regular IMM brush. Triparts, if it's a tripart, in this case I ended up not using triparts, but you could. So going over the process, I have a whole tool here just for the IMMs, and this is basically it, I think. Let me see if I'm not mistaken. So no, these are the tombstones, right? And you can see they're kind of clipping, because one of the workflows that I even promised you guys that I was going to get into last week was actually our workflows from ZBrush to something like Substance Painter or whatever you're using for texturing, right? And to do that, I had to make a low poly of each one of them with UVs, etc., and then bring them over to Substance Painter and bake everything and texture, do whatever you want in texturing, and then use those textures back here in ZBrush with those meshes. So the meshes that you see here on this IMM are basically decimated versions of the mesh. So if I draw one of these over, and then I press Control F to see the wireframe, you can see the topology. Let me turn off the texture again for this, because this is not. And you can see the topology is all decimated, right? But it still retains the UVs, which means I can basically just push texture on and it's going to apply the texture. Of course, this is the wrong texture because I'm drawing it on the wrong subtool. And again, if you guys followed ZBrush Live on the last week, I did go over how to retain UVs with your IMM brushes, because this is a question that came up also on the Discord server. So this is we're going to leave the ZBrush to Substance part maybe for next week, because today I'm going to try to figure to show you guys how I did the IMM, and I'm going to start from scratch. So if I go over to just whatever brush you want, just standard brush or whatever, you have your IMM models ready to go, right? So you have something, this view set is wrong. It should be this one and this one. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be assigned correctly. But basically you have your your meshes that you want to include in your IMM brush all ready to go. So let's do the skull over here. This is the IMM. Whatever it says underscore IMM, it has UVs and it's decimated, so it's ready to be incorporated. I'm gonna actually do this for the non-IMM ones because I want to show you guys how I retain UVs and retain detail to have a lower poly version of the model, but still have that be included. So when I have your, well, let's just use these two. I think these work fine. So maybe this one as well, and there we go, like 3 or 4 of those meshes, right? Oh, Jesus, I'm horrible with naming. I'm sorry. Naming conventions, guys. You have to keep naming your subtools correctly, not like I do, which is all over the place. So basically, well, I'm not going to focus on how to model these and bring them the whole process again. This is going to be for next week. But to create IMM brushes, basically you want to have all of your models on the same place, let's say, and oriented in the same place. I mean the same tool, right? Oriented properly for the IMM. So the IMM draws. Basically, let me go back to our brush here to show you real quick. Whenever you're drawing your IMM, it's going to draw based on the normal orientation, right? The normal of wherever you're drawing. So if I draw over here, it's going to draw in that direction, okay? So, or in this direction, like if I just draw it over, I can just populate this with crazy tombstones everywhere, right? But it's drawing based on where you click on the angle of the normal of where you click, right? So to have that proper orientation, I'm going to just create a couple of them just real quick to show you the wrong way of doing it and the correct way of doing it. So if I just have my camera like this, let's say, like at a random angle, and I just go over to brush and say create multi-mesh brush, it's going to create everything, hopefully. And hopefully it won't crash. Oh, there you go. So it's going to create with all your subtools, which is something I don't want because I don't want repeated skulls and repeated whatever. So what you want to do if you have a bunch of tools here, especially if you're baking and having your low polys and high polys and whatever, is to actually do them one by one, basically. So insert mesh and append. So you want to go over, again, this is at this angle. And I want to go over and instead of creating insert multi-mesh brush, create insert mesh, and then it's going to ask you, would you like to append this active mesh to this brush or create a new one? If I append, it's just going to add another mesh to the current brush that I have. So I'm going to pick new one, and this is a new brush with just a single model. So what's wrong with this is that if I start drawing now, you can see the orientation is all over the place. That's because it's drawing your mesh at the angle where you captured it, which was this one, right? The angle of the camera. And then it's drawing from this angle on that normal. So it's going to give you some weird, angles on your IMM. So if you really want your IMM to be drawn, for example, from this bottom section, you want to put your models like this, and maybe turn off perspective. So from the top down, right? Because you want them to draw like this, right? You have to think the camera is sort of like your IMM capturer, right? You're capturing from that camera angle. So if you go over here now, and let me just append this one, instead of pressing new, I'm going to press append. If I tap append, it's going to, well, yeah, whatever. And now it has 2 meshes, right? One of them at the wrong angle and the other one at the correct angle, I think. Let me see. So if I go over here now, and I select the mesh that I want, and I draw it, you can see, well, it's capturing that one too, which is not what you want, but it's drawing at a correct angle now because it knows where you want it to capture from, where you want it to be drawn over from. So let me go back to this, and instead of doing that, I'm just gonna go and let me just find all of those. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna create another IMM, and in this case I'm going to create insert mesh, append, always append. And then I'm going to show you how to delete these two because these are wrong, right? So let's go back to our brush palette, and in the create tab you have to pick the mesh you want. In this case I want to delete this one, and go over here to delete mesh. So basically it's brush, create, delete mesh, and it's going to get deleted. So if I delete that one, it's going to well, basically this bar over here is going to disappear because now we only have one mesh, which is that number over there on the corner of your brush. So we have this tombstone, but now I want maybe this one as well. So now I have to go over and find it, which is that subtool over there, and go and create an insert mesh and click append. So now we have two of them. So I can go over and draw this one over here, and now I'm like, I want that one, but using this same scale. If you turn on your Gizmo by pressing W and then just tap this one, it's going to replace that. The difference here is related to the depth, right? Because it's drawing based on the pivot of the mesh that you have. So the pivot in this case is right over there. So it's not going to draw exactly from the bottom up. So you either reset your pivot on each one of these meshes to the bottom, or you go over here to depth and you tweak that. So you basically push it up a little bit and then you tap it again. Maybe it doesn't work with tapping again. Yeah, I have to redraw that, because if you change these, it's not per mesh, it's per brush. So I'm gonna actually go over here and push my pivot down maybe to something like that. And this, I feel, already has the pivot over there, but I want to push it down over there and reset this pivot. So make sure you have everything set up before, not like me. I'm kind of lazy, so so let's go back to this and let's create the mesh again, the IMM again. So let's go like that, and let's go again to insert mesh append. So if I append this now and append that other one, I can just alt tap the subtool to select it and do create insert mesh append. And now this one, if I draw it over, it's being drawn over like that, and if I switch it, it's correctly placed in the pivot, right? And the depth is still at like a default setting, but you can tweak this anyway. If you wanted to embed a little bit into the surface, just push it down a little bit, and then you just draw it again, and now you can see it's slightly pushed down. I don't know if you can see it, but I can actually tweak this like that and then just draw it over again, and you can see it's embedded into the surface, right? So yeah, so this is the basic process I used to create just the IMM brush with all the models that were placed one by one, not the curve brush. That's a whole different ball game. But for this, let me go back to another subtool that I have here, and this tool has all the models that I'm going to be using as IMM curve brushes, right? So, and this is also what I use to texture and bake, right? So I have them in the correct location. I have the naming conventions here, because for those of you who work with Substance Painter, you know it's a good practice to have underscore something something, and it be consistent with your high polys and low polys, so you can bake them separately. Even though they're clipping together, if you have a specific name for your low polys and a specific name for your high polys, you can bake them separately anyway in Substance. So yeah, this is what I use. This is literally the only model that's being used for this entire fence system. Where is it? Oh Jesus, my naming conventions. There you go. So go back. I don't need that curve brush. So that fence over there is basically just that one model from that fence over there. Now you can see on the stream. There you go. So that fencing over there is literally just this one model, this over here. So then what you do, basically, if I want to do this IMM curve brush, right? Let's just call them curve brushes, right? Because IMM tripart curve brush is a long name. It's a tongue roller, right? So let's just create an IMM curve brush for here. So again, we're going to orient this, but instead of orient, because now it's important, because we're going to have a path, right? Now it's important not only how you orient it like this, if you're facing the front or if you're facing top down, but also if you're facing it like this or like this, right? Because if you're doing this, it's going to draw side to side like that, right? And you don't want that. You want it to go like the tip of this fence to be like the beginning of the next one. So what we want to do is press and hold shift, tap, and then let go of shift so we can rotate this around, and then press and hold shift again to snap it. So now we're basically, this is kind of like a gymnastics kind of thing, you know, like people always go like, oh my god, ZBrush camera is like weird, like the way you rotate the camera. But once you get used to it, it's fairly simple, right? And it's very intuitive working on a tablet. So you want this mesh to be, let me turn off light booleans for now. You want this mesh to be like this in this case, right? Because we want them to spawn basically from the bottom up, right? And also for the slabs here, another cool mention here is that I use the ray mesh. Oh, it's not working, but I use the ray mesh to preview how it would work tileable. And this is a good workflow if you're modeling your mesh to be incorporated into an IMM, is to use a ray mesh. And people who follow me know that I use this all the time. I use a ray mesh to basically, to basically preview how this is going to tile. So if I do something like, let's say, 5 repeats, and then go, maybe let's do 6. I haven't locked, well, I have locked position, lock size. So I just do something like that. And maybe I don't want any scale. Let me reset this whole thing. That's better, probably. So if I do something like this, and then have like, let's try 3, and then do 3, and of course it's going to be there. So I can tweak this just to preview how it's going to look like. So it's going to look like something like this, which is still very obvious that it's tiling, right? But the cool thing is that once you convert your IMM into an actual subtool, you can go in and just do auto groups and just tweak everything by hand, right? And why did I have one single, basically I have a single slab. These are rocks. So you have a single slab like this, and then you have that one that's also a single slab, and then you have all of them combined. And the reason is that ZBrush, when you apply a texture with UVs, it's per subtool, right? And if I wanted to texture this rock and this rock separately, and then have them on the same subtool, that wouldn't work because it's 2 different textures, and you can only have 1 texture per subtool, at least to the extent of my knowledge, right? So I decided to texture this one and the individual slabs as separate meshes, right? So I can use them in something like the framing for the door. So this is a cool way to preview this. Let's go back to our fence example here. And what we want to do now is basically the same process. We want to go over and say create insert mesh, and then click new. It's going to create a new insert mesh brush. But one thing that we need to do, let me just do, whoa, this is crazy. So let me just try it out. So if I drag this over, again, this is just a single normal IMM brush like we did before with the tombstones. But for a curve brush, you want to go over here to stroke and turn on curve mode. And now what this is going to do is if I drag like that, it's going to drag the fence, whoa, like that. And you can see already what I did to make that fence surrounding the environment, right? So I basically drew this curve around the environment, and you get like your fence done, basically. So one cool thing that you see here is that sometimes this spacing is not that consistent. So you want to go over to your brush palette under the modifiers, and there's a bunch of different settings here that you can turn on or tweak to have your IMM behave differently. And also in the stroke curve modifiers as well, like a fall off, like intensity or size fall off. So I can make, like, for example, this size, and now it's going to get, well, basically squeezed in as it goes from one point to the other. So it's going to become like super tiny over there, which is not something I want. So let me just go back to stroke, turn off size. You can tweak the fall off as well, but that's besides the point. So for this, what I decided to do is I turn on stretch. And if you turn on stretch and tap it, in this case, it's not doing, well, you can see it working, but it's for some reason making it, flipping the normals. Let me just draw it over again. So we have stretch. Let me just draw it again. There you go. And now what it's doing, it's basically trying to stretch the curve based on the distance. So if I go and say, maybe raise the size here a little bit so we can see properly. This is happening. I don't know why this is happening. It's inverting my normals every time I do this. Every time I tap. It's probably because I'm drawing on a different, let me see here. No, it's fine. No, it isn't. Wow, I don't know what's going on. It's just inverting my normals. All right, so let me try it on a plane. Maybe it will work like this. So plane 3D, make polymesh 3D, go over here and start drawing. Yeah, it's working now. Okay, I guess. Well, these things happen sometimes. So, right, so we can have overlap as well. So the overlap, again, if you guys didn't know, if you press and hold Control under any of these buttons, it's going to show you a description of what it's going to do. And here you can see it will control how much overlap an InsertMesh will have when stretch is enabled along a curve mode. So if I push this up and then tap this, whoops, and then tap this, you can see it's going to intersect there. Even though there's a bug here. I don't know what's going on, honestly, guys. Like, this never happened to me. So I can just draw it over again. And you can see now they're kind of intersecting more. And this is what I want, right? And after we do this, what I usually do is I go over to SubTool and split. And you can see that the original plane on the SubTool is masked and the IMM is unmasked, right? So if I split unmasked points, now I have a separate SubTool just for that fence. And now is a cool thing. They are not welded. They're just clipping together. So I can use something like auto groups. I'm trying not to go to my custom menu, man, because the viewers might not know where that is. So if I go over down here to polygroups and turn on and tap in auto groups, you can see what it's going to do. It's basically going to analyze any mesh that's not welded at any point, edge loop or face, basically. Anything that's not welded together into the same mesh is going to have a different polygroup. So if you look at the polygroups right now, they're basically the same polygroup. They're split in the middle because they have UVs. And if I tap auto groups, it's going to give me a polygroup per each mesh. And this is cool because now I can come over here and control tap with the Gizmo, and I'm effectively unmasking only that model that I just selected. And I can even alt and just place the Gizmo in the orientation I want, and then just rotate it around. Do the same thing over here. So rotate this around, maybe scale it down a little bit to fix some of the issues. So you can do all sorts of stuff, even delete some of these. I can just go and Control Shift tap, Control Shift drag again to unhide that. Same thing for, like, I don't know, maybe this one, or maybe I want to invert this one, so like rotate it around so I can go to the center of the unmasked mesh and just rotate it 180 degrees. And now we have something like this. Of course, like, you still need to manually tweak this, but you get some variation now on your fence, and it kind of helps to break up that repetition that you get from a single mesh, right? Alternatively, you can just go over here to your original mesh. Where's the mesh? Oh, Jesus, my naming practices need to be sharpened. But yeah, you can go over here to your fence and create another variation here. So you can just do that over here, like doing an auto groups. I'm doing my custom menu thing, but it's basically polygroups, auto groups, and then just do that over here. Maybe duplicate this mesh so you don't ruin whatever you had before. And then on this duplicate, we can have this maybe rotate it around. Let me just isolate this solo mode. Rotate it around, have this, I don't know, maybe like that or whatever, or maybe this like actually on the ground. And then you have a second variation to that. And then once you do your capturing, let's say, so let me see if the pivot, yeah, the pivot's all over the place, but whatever. So if I go over here and now click the other one, yeah, and I'll click create insert mesh and append, we have two of them. And one of the cool things we can do now with our IMM, oh, this is not the correct one. Where is it? Oof, Jesus. I know I'm going a little fast, guys. Like, let me know if there's any questions in the chat or whatever that might pop up during this very quick kind of presentation. Is there any questions currently?
No, I think we're all set at the moment.
All right, cool.
The one question we had was answered, but it was how do you change the compass? It's a little bit slightly off topic, but how do you change the compass in ZBrush?
The compass? What do you mean compass? The gizmo?
The Majin Buu.
Oh, the cam view. Oh wow, that's always popping up on my ZBrush live stream, man. Every stream, I just get that every time. Like, how do you do the cam view? That is pretty simple. I can show you guys real quick. Like, if I want this tombstone, for example, to be my cam view, I can just go over here and do like, maybe I want a nice render, maybe do some perspective over here, and let's actually do a render over here with. I don't know if this works with filters. Does this work? Oh wow, if it works with filters, I'm just gonna redo the render for Majin Buu. Wow, let's try it, guys. This is an experimentation. First time I'm trying it. So let me do this on the front. Let's go BPR. And one of the things you want to do now is go over here to cam view. Where's the cam view? Preferences, cam view, cam view. And there's a couple of buttons here. You can turn it on and off, change the size, go to your next cam view. You have multiple by default. Right, you even have an earthquake over there, or some other models that you have. I have my own, so it's basically this one that you guys were seeing. And one of the things you want to do is after the render, if you don't want it rendered, you just want the actual model there, you don't render, and then you just click that button over there, make cam view. And if you do this, it's going to basically do a bunch of renders from every angle. It's going to take a while because it's doing multiple renders. And then it's going to create that cam view for you. Right, and it's going to place it over there. And if you want to save that cam view, you have to go and export that as a PSD file and put it on the correct folder under, I think it's on startup cam view. I'm not really sure. I have to check that. But there's a folder for the cam view, just like there is for projects and tools, etc., brushes, whatever you want in ZBrush. And then just put your PSD file over there, and ZBrush will automatically detect that, and you can cycle through the cam views just like I showed you, and it's gonna be there, right? So once this is finished, you're gonna see this Happy Halloween tombstone come to life in the cam view. Let's see if it works with this filter thing. I'm not sure it will, because there's like a fade over there with a glow, and it's gonna give you some wonky results, but maybe on the silhouette of the cam view. So it's probably a good idea to turn off your filters. Maybe at least not have some that will go like this, you know, like do a glow or a feathering effect. Because yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it doesn't really work with the filters because the filters are kind of in the image. But you can see what it's doing. It's basically, so if I wanted to do the same thing but without a render, you can do this and do cam view, and you can see it's going to go way faster. And now we have that as our cam view, right? So that's our cam view right now. So we have the Happy Halloween thing going. And to save, I'm not really sure, like there's a file here that you can export the cam view. And then I'm going to have to check that out because I haven't done that in a while. This Majin Buu, I made this in like early 2021. And then I made that a cam view, and that's it. That's my cam view forever, basically. So yeah, but this is the basic process of how to actually create your own cam view with your own models. Maybe you want to have your own like little skull or little head that you want to have instead of the default one. And it's simple. It's just going over here and make cam view. There's actually a nice tutorial by Ian Robinson online on how to, the whole process. Basically, it's where I learned it. So I don't know if you guys can find it, but there's definitely a tutorial online. I'm not really sure if it's on the ZBrush channel or his own personal channel. I'm pretty sure it was on his personal channel because it was before he joined Maxon. So yeah, but there's a tutorial online for this, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, so that was a tangent, but cool. That's an amazing question actually, because a lot of people just ask me about the Majin Buu character and all that stuff, and it's just I never address it to that extent on stream, but I promise I will. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do like rendering and doing cool stuff with your cam view. Right, but back to this. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so this is our current IMM, right? So we have 2 meshes. And when we start populating this now, if I tap, you can see it's only, oh jeez, why is this happening today? Of all days. This is annoying. All right, so if I draw this over here, it's going to give me that fence, right? One cool thing we can do under our brush palette over here is add variations. So if you press Control, it's going to tell, hey, well, we have variations 1 and then 2, 3. So this is like the amount of variations. Like how many meshes do you want to have in your variations? In this case, we have 2. So let's just type in 2. Like we have 2 variations, right? So this is basically telling ZBrush, all right, let's say we had like 10 meshes. If we want just 2 of them to be like intertwined between 2 of the meshes, we put the number 2 over there. And then the select is basically the method, basically. So if I go to 1, it's going to cycle forward. So if I do 1, it's going to go first one and the second one, right? It's going to create these 2 variations. So if I tap this, there you go. So we have 1. Oh, Jesus. This bug is killing me. I don't know what's going on today. If I tap this, it should work properly. Yeah, it does, but for some reason it flips the normals. I don't know why. But you can see what's going on. It's basically that first mesh and then the second mesh, right? And one other thing that you can do with these is basically random, which is number 3. So if you put it at random, it's going to basically alternate between one of these 2 at random, which is awesome. So if you press now, it's going to update. And it's kind of random. Well, sometimes there's like 2 of them all together, and then there's like random variations. So the cool thing about this is that you can create like 5 of them and then just have random and tap, and you have your fence done, basically. Still, you could tweak it by hand after the fact. But yeah, so this is the basic method that I use to create that fence. And now if I want a particular path with the IMM, and we're already 40 minutes in. Oh my God, this is flying. Jesus.
It always seems to go so fast, man.
Wow, I thought I had like 30 minutes left, or maybe like 40. Because I just talk nonstop. Wow. Okay, so if I go back to our scene over here, what I basically did, this is something I picked up from Michael Pavlovich. Actually, he taught me this, but it's not that complex of a method. You can figure it out. It's basically, you go over here. I used ZModeler for this, right? Initially I had some topology, some low poly topology. So this had an edge loop going around, and I used that edge loop for the same thing that I'm going to show you guys over here. So in this case, I'm going to use the ZSphere technique. So the ZSpheres, if you want a particular path for your IMM, basically I'm going to insert a ZSphere over here, and then I'm going to move it over. I'm going to move it over here to the beginning of my path. Like turning off perspective is a good idea for this kind of work. And maybe scale it down. Whoops, not rotate. Nope, nope, nope. Jesus. So scale it down. Let me just go back. You don't want to rotate your Z-spheres. If you rotate, you're going to create a twisting motion to your IMM curve, and you want that. So let's go in transparency, ghost mode, so we can see what we're actually doing. So in this case, I'm going to maybe go to the front and not rotate. Jesus, why am I always rotating this? And just drag another Z-sphere and then tap and hold shift so it stays in the same size. And then I can move it to the end of my path. So something like that. Let me just do on the other side actually, so you guys can see. Just move these Z-spheres over here. I actually prefer to just move them to the end point and then just go to draw mode and just draw more like that to make the path more kind of organic. Doesn't need to be perfect because you can always smooth it after the fact, but at least somewhat precise here. All right, so we have our Z-spheres here, right? And once we go to adaptive skin, this is going to create a mesh out of these Z-spheres. If you want to preview that, you press this preview and it's going to show you what the mesh is going to look like, or you tap A. If you tap the letter A on your keyboard, it's going to show you the preview. So we don't want Dynamesh because this was a Dynamesh. We want clean topology, right? So now if we turn off Dynamesh by pushing it down to 0 and press preview, it's going to give us some clean topology, but maybe that's too much density. So I want a very low poly kind of ZSphere. So you can see the path is basically a strip of polygons, which is what we want. So if I click make adaptive skin, it's going to make a separate tool in this case. And this separate tool, where's the skin? Oh, there it is. So I'm going to insert that tool. This is a ZSphere. You can model here, but it's not actual geometry. It's not polygons per se. It's just a preview, right? So you don't want to mess with that too much. So let's insert the other ZSphere skin, which is this one. And this is actual topology. So one of the things I do is I delete these bottom edges and this top edge over here. So I'm going to go geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. Right over here, modify topology, delete hidden. So now this is all we have, and I'm going to use my handy dandy Z modeler brush. And now I can go over here to this polygon, go to polygroup, polyloop, and this is going to group an entire loop of polygons, which is in the name, right? So if I do this and then just hold and tap Alt to change polygroups, same thing over here. And now all I want is this strip of polygons. So Control Shift tap in the middle to isolate that. And then again, geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. And now we can go over here and maybe flatten that geometry. And eventually what we get is sort of like a strip of polygons with two polygroups going into a precise path like that, right? And now here's why I'm doing this, right? Because you're like, yeah, but what does that have to do with IMM brushes? This is one of the multiple ways you have to actually frame a curve of your IMM. Well, first you have to be on your IMM. So let's go to this one, which is our fence, right? And we can move this around. Like we can actually go to the move brush and do whatever, all sorts of like tweaking here. But in this case, for the sake of time, I'm just going to skip that phase. But okay, so we have our IMM curve brush. Go to stroke. There's curve functions right over there. If I tap shift, you can see. And there's a button here called frame mesh. It's going to frame whatever you want. If you want to frame the border of the polygons that you have here, that can be done too. Creased edges, you can control this by creasing. So I didn't even need polygroups. I could just crease an entire edge loop and that's it. So it depends. There's multiple ways to do, just like everything in ZBrush, there's multiple ways to go about it. So if I turn off everything except polygroups and I click frame mesh, now we have a curve in the middle of those strips of polygons, right? So now if I tap this, we get our fence in the precise location we want, right? With the precise curvature. And we can tweak this size and it's going to give me, oh, wow, it's fixed. That bug I was just having. Suddenly it's not happening anymore. I don't know why, but whatever.
Funny how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like it happens throughout the entire stream, delaying me and throwing me off. And then at the end, where you're already stressed for time, it's just fixed. You know, now that you're fine with it, suddenly it's fixed. Okay, so this is how I did that whole section of fences, and then the rest is basically what we showed earlier with the maybe just plug in some skulls over here using our other IMM brush like this, but not this one actually. The IMM Halloween props. This is it. So now we can go over here and do like whatever, and then maybe the candle. Cool thing, you can actually control drag to duplicate and then tap this, and now you have a candle in the precise location. So you can just tweak the scale a little bit right over there. Maybe do like this and rotate it around and then move it. So there's all sorts of usability. So basically I use IMM brushes in the same way. If there's someone in the chat that's an environment artist working for games, you know what a modular kit is, right? So I use IMMs like a modular kit. Like I'm using in Unreal Engine, if I'm going to do this in Unreal, I wouldn't use IMMs for that scenario. I would just model that section that I would use as an IMM mesh and then use that in the engine to actually populate modularly the environment. But since we're doing everything inside a ZBrush, then I guess this is the way to go, right? IMM is like your modularity kit version of ZBrush, basically, instead of using it in engine. Right, cool. So this has been dragging on for like 50 minutes, the IMM section of the stream. But I'm gonna show you. So the same thing for this. Basically, I can just go over here and show you guys like with the cobblestone. And again, this is basically the same idea, but instead of using your high poly, I'm using the low poly with the UVs and textures from Substance, which I'm hopefully going to show next week if I don't speak that much, but whatever. So yeah, like the cobblestone path, I did that before applying the surface noise that I showed you guys last week. So the surface noise that kind of deforms the terrain, because the IMM picks up on those shifts in the normal, right? So I wanted a flat plane. So I did the cuts for my terrain like we did initially with a slice curve brush. And then I did the cobblestone immediately. And only after that did I actually make the grass and all of that sort of stuff. But it's basically the same idea. If I just go over to the plane that we had before, and hopefully it doesn't have any issues with this. But if we go over here, and just draw something. Whoa, this is big. Nope. Something like this. You can see it's giving me the path. Well, it's a little twisty for some reason, but it's supposed to be, you know, fairly simple, blocky terrain. It's twisting. I don't know why. Yeah. But this is the same idea as the fence, right? So I wanted to frame a particular path and then just frame curve polygroups and just apply this. And once you apply this, you can then go and basically go to polygroups, not polygroups, I'm sorry, split unmasked points. So in under the subtool palette, and you get a separate polygroup, and then auto groups. So polygroups, auto groups. I'm just using my custom menu to be faster, and then just do some manual placement over here, so you get some more breakup over that path, right? So this is basically my workflow for using this IMM path thing. Right, so moving on, let's go to, let's see if I can fit that in 10 minutes. Let's go. Challenge accepted. I'm going to try it.
I had a weird, I'm not sure if you guys can see the chat. My chat just went like completely blank and white. So I don't know if there are questions. I can't see them. Kyle, if you see any questions.
Well, I see. Let me see on YouTube. I like how you sculpted the wood fence. Thank you. Everyone likes your Gizmo. Yeah, there's not a lot of questions actually. Wow, people are just quiet today. Too quiet. No, I'm kidding. So let's move on then to array mesh, right? So I used array mesh for the door, and the same idea. Oh Jesus, I need to clean this up after the fact. After the stream, I'm going to clean this up from all these models from demos and etc. So let's go to, where is it, damn it? Oh, there it is. Okay, so for this, I use the same workflow as the IMM that you just saw. So basically, that's the reason I have these two over here as a separate one. So I press this one, and then go to variations. I have two of them, and random, and then just do two of them means that it's going to create a random variation between two of the meshes, right? So this one and that one, that's all I want. So even though I have more of them, I only want those two. So that's why I have two of them here and random variation selection mode. So once I frame that mesh and then tap, it's going to give me something like this. And then I just scaled it up a little bit. And for the wood door, this, I don't know if you can notice, but you can probably notice some repetition here. This is basically a single wood bar sculpted and then array meshed and with live booleans, as you can see by this super clean cut over there, right? So, and then with some UVs, texture and all of that. And again, if you apply the texture, you get something of the sorts, like after the ZBrush, the substance, ZBrush to substance kind of workflow over here. So yeah, so this is the basic idea. For some reason it's kind of weird. Why is it? Why is the material going all funky on me. I don't know why. Okay, so there might be like polypaint as well. No. The materials settings just went default for some reason. Doesn't matter, right? For the sake of this demo, this kind of works. So let's go over how to do this. So let's go to our demo over here, our fibers here. And if I turn on live booleans, I already have an opening. And I decided to use this because now I'm going to use this, the same mesh, to actually create the door. So first of all, I like folders. I'm a big folder guy. So I like folder and pizza boxes in ZBrush. For those of you who know that inside kind of joke, it's the pizza boxes like the transpose set, and folders are the way to go, basically. So I'm going to create a folder named door, and maybe not this one, but I can duplicate. Oh, right. I can duplicate this and then create a folder called door. And this, instead of using it as a subtractive, I'm going to use it as an intersection. And now anything that I model on top, any subtool, is going to be only shown when it's intersecting with this model, basically. So I can insert, let's say, Cube 3D, whatever it is, because you guys know I like the Gizmo deformer, the Gizmo primitives. And now I can go, all right, maybe I don't want any subdivisions over there, and maybe I just want one over there. And then I can just go like this. I'm just gonna try to go fast here, guys. So let me just scale this up and scale it like that to make like a wooden plank thingy. There we go. And this goes over here, and this is an intersect. So that means that only that section is being shown. I'm still using this entire plank, but it's only going to be shown over there. That's what I want. So I want this scaled down maybe a little bit more, maybe something like that, and then something like this, and then I want it placed like there, right? And here's the thing. What I want to do now is I want to sculpt something real quick. Let me just see if I can do this in 5 minutes. Wow. Okay. So let me try to pick this resolution, maybe tap this open circle. This is my Dynamesh button over there, but it's basically under geometry Dynamesh. So we have something like this, and then we can just go in with our trim dynamic. I'm going to use some symmetry to save some time. So I'm going to go to transform, activate symmetry, X and Z maybe, just to showcase, and local symmetry, turn off dynamic, right? So if you go over here and start, wow, okay, this is not going well today. Okay, there you go. So start sculpting whatever, like something over here. I use the orbs cracks brush all the time. This is so badly sculpted, but forgive me, guys. It's fine. For the demo, it's fine. So we got something like this, and then we go over to our orb. I use the orbs cracks because they give me a nice kind of, so we can start sculpting some details over here, and you can see, I don't know, some details so you can identify which side you're on, and you're going to see something with array mesh that's something I use a lot all the time. So let's re-dynamesh this thing. Let's just sculpt some more straight details over here. And then once we're done with that, so you have some strokes over here, and then you have this kind of curvy, weird shape, just so you guys can see in array mesh what's going to happen. So yeah, we have some details over there. And now, if I turn on array mesh, Alt-A in my computer, but you can set it a hotkey by pressing Control, Alt, and holding, and then tapping this. I just have my own. So Alt-A turns it on and off. And what I want is I want to check the pivot first. So turn on transpose, go to your Gizmo, press Y to turn on the transpose line. And this is it. The Gizmo is in the center, right? So if we lock position reset, it's going to go to the center of the world, which you don't want. We want this to be over there. So now what we want is go back to our preview over here, and we want 2 repeats offset by 1, actually by 2. But the thing is, we want this flipped around. So let's rotate this, maybe rotate it on the Z like 360, and then mirrored in the Z. So you get something like that, right? And the cool thing about this is that now we append a new, and now I can have, let's say, 3 repetitions. So it's basically 6 planks, right? 3 repetitions, and we want to offset this, whoops, offset, not rotate, offset this by 3. And now we want something else because we want to rotate this around as well. So let's rotate it in the X 360. But one thing we figure out is that, okay, so this is 3 repetitions, and if we rotate 360, it's going to give you uneven rotations. That is, let me just rotate to a point where it's 100% rotated. So it's like 270, is it? 270? Yeah, it's probably it. There you go. So, but the cool thing is we want this to be, we want to tile this curve 3 times. So you get something that's basically this. So you get to rotate every other, right? So if we do this like 360, no, not 360. Huh. So let's do this manually, actually, because it's 3 and not 4. We could have done 4, but, you know, I'm lazy. So then let's, no, because this is not rotating. So it should be something like this. And then we can mirror in the Y as well. And mirror in the X, maybe not mirror in the X, but we can rotate it actually in the Y as well. Something like that, you know. So you could do all sorts of stuff right over here. But to the point, now if we go over here, actually we should have done 4, but whatever. So for the sake of the demo, let's do this like that, and let's do 4, and let's do 4 tiles over here, and we get our, this is 4 as well. We get our door kind of cut over there. It's too noticeable, the repetition, because of that pattern that I just made. But here's how I do a door. Basically, how I make a door from scratch using array mesh. And then for the framing, again, you have to understand that then you do the same technique that I just showed to create like the door framing around. And the doorknob is basically an individual model that I sculpted, right? So just a way for you guys to actually very quickly just do something that's very repetitive in nature, and at the same time being able to tweak this on the fly and resculpt however you want. So if I start smoothing this, let's say, and then start sculpting stuff over here, you can see it's applying to every single one of them. So if I don't like that pattern because it's too noticeable, I could just go here with the trim dynamic and see how it behaves over there. Let me just lock size so it doesn't change the ratio of the array based on the size. So if I move stuff around, so something like this, and then just go over with maybe some clay build up to just make some dents over here. I don't know, whatever you guys want, right? So yeah, so this is basically my workflow for the door, right? So array mesh to do this the slabs, basically the wooden slabs on the door, and then do the same technique we just showcased earlier for the fence, but for the whole thingy, which I can reuse this. Basically, I can reuse this mesh. So if I duplicate this again, and this time let's take it out of the live boolean and do something like this. So I can delete this section over here. I don't need this, so delete hidden. And then I can actually, let me see, oh, there's no polygroups, but yeah, so you can go Z modeler, polygroup, polyloop, polygroup, polyloop, something like that. And we can have, actually, I want this entire thing. So I want polygroup, polyloop. I actually want this as a separate polygroup, and this as a separate polygroup, and this could be its own separate polygroup, right? So we have something like this. You can maybe delete this section. We don't need that. So delete hidden, geometry modified topology, delete hidden. And one cool thing we want is this to be 2 separate polygroups, right? Because we're using polygroups to frame our mesh, right? And we want this to be its own. So we only have one division like there. So now if we go to our IMM not with the fence. I'm going to use the other one, right? So I'm going to use these two with the variations on, with a random selection, and I go to stroke and frame mesh. You get that curve over there, which is going to be sort of around where the door ends, right? Because it's using the same mesh to do the booleans, right? So now if I tap this, maybe go a little bigger. Whoa, that's too big. So something, whoops, something maybe along these lines. Turn off live booleans. Maybe something a little bigger, but not that big. This is giving me some weird issues. I don't know what's going on today. ZBrush just doesn't seem to like me. It's flipping the geometry for some reason. It's the same bug. I have to check this out maybe later. But yeah, it should do fine. Let's do frame again. But it's not for some reason. Yeah,
I mean, I like it with the rocks. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, but it's not. It's the variations are not working, and I don't know why.
Know.
Oh, there you go. See?
You always find something happening like this.
Jesus.
So we are over time. I know that you've got a prior engagement that you have to run to. So we're going on 5 minutes over. So what we do need to cover, or should maybe cover next week, is the slime bridge. That was something that I wanted to personally see because I haven't used that at all in ZBrush yet. So we'll have to cover that, and then maybe the ZBrush to substance workflow that we were going to talk about. Yeah,
like the ZBrush to substance workflow could be, it is a challenge because it's the entire process, right? So, but the slime bridge is fairly quick, but yeah, we're over time, so we can do that next week, definitely. There's no rush, right? People will be staying tuned for. I know there's some. So yeah, there's someone in the chat just shouting, "Give me some slime bridge tricks," right? So people are looking forward to that, and it's great. But yeah, there you go. It's on screen right now. So there are a lot of people that just saw that. Maybe they don't even realize that it's there. It's a feature that has been there for a while. I know that because I think it was 2022. I think when 2022 released or something. There was a feature there called slime bridge, and a lot of people don't know what kind of case scenario would they use that for. I used it for the webs, right? So why not, right? I know Patrick Foley does that as well. He uses slime bridge a lot because he does food, right? So there's like viscous substances and stuff like going, like cheese melting or whatever.
He's crazy with it.
Yeah. So there's multiple applications for that. I'm going to try to do that next week with along with the ZBrush to substance workflow. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I just kept going, and I could keep going for like another 2 hours, definitely. But yeah, that's all the time we have, right? So yeah, it's been cool. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it is. It is very easy to go over time. I mean, I feel like we do it. It's always more difficult when you have like something immediately after that you have to run to, because then we keep everything closed off. But yeah, we're used to going over. Everybody's used to it going over. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
So that will be all for this week, everyone. Next week, we are changing things up a little bit. So Rodolfo will be finishing up in ZBrush and Substance. We'll take a look at the slime bridge, and then I'll be taking over on whatever second part of the stream I have left. So we'll dive into some Cinema 4D and Redshift. And then in week 4, we'll be doing a bit more in Cinema 4D and Redshift regarding lighting, maybe materials, things like that. And getting a bit more complex. So, man, you've crushed it with ZBrush. Holy cow, my brain's exploding. I don't know if anybody else is.
I mean, today I tried to focus on one or two things, because last week was like, whoa, like everything just going over on a single stream, and I realized that there were too many tangents when I do that for just a single hour. So Yeah,
sure.
I mean, if anyone on the chat hasn't followed ZBrush Live, they should, because there are a lot of great artists there with a lot of different workflows, with a lot of different industries that they work for, with different goals for their work. And if they want to see more of stuff like this, sometimes stuff that's very niche in ZBrush, but there's a particular artist that uses that for their particular workflow. And this is how I learned ZBrush, basically. So I had lessons with Paul, but then I was just watching ZBrush Live like it was my news channel, let's say. Like
Right.
I was just watching TV, basically watching ZBrush Live. So if you guys want to learn more about ZBrush, there's Z Classroom, there's Cineversity, but there's ZBrush Live as well. And just by watching artists working, sometimes you'll learn a lot more than in a 1 hour lecture, because there's only so much I can cover in 1 hour, right? And if you guys really want to go and see like an actual workflow from start to finish and even talk to the artists, it's a nice place to go do that. So there's my shameless plug. Hey, come to ZBrush Live as well and watch his work.
All right. Well, that sounds good, man. I'm gonna push you out of here because I know they have to get ready.
Yeah, just keep going, man. Throw me out the window.
You hang up. You hang up. No, you hang up. We'll just.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, Rodolfo. Thanks for another awesome presentation. Blew my mind. I'm sure you blew everybody else's minds. And we'll see you next week to dive into more ZBrush, Substance, and Cinema 4D and Redshift. So,
all right.
bye, everyone.
Bye. See you later, guys.